It's an absolute pleasure for me to be here talking to you about this, about the evaluation really of our Canterbury program with your charter members here. The release of the report today, and just to let you know, there's copies of the reports of our evaluation out in the foyer there for you to take as you go. This is really a great opportunity for us to thank everyone that's been involved, and that's all of the hard work that you, and when I mean you, I mean the collective you, everybody that's here and everyone who's a member, everyone who's been part of that charter, all organisations, everything that they've done to lift their health and safety standards across that construction in Canterbury space. And particularly have to mention in partnership with WorkSafe as well. We have been an important part of that work going forward. So it's great here to be today, especially as you celebrate your success over the past 4 years, and it's really exciting to hear about how you with us will continue into the future, because what we are about, I guess, is that long-term sustainability. So it's great to kind of get to a high level of high-performing health and safety culture, but it's keeping it there is really that challenge, and that's going to be a challenge for our new board. So good luck, guys. And of course, we're part of that board as well. So it's going to be a real exciting time for us to continue in that vein. And to support that celebratory mood, I guess, I'm really pleased to say that this evaluation that you're going to pick up before you leave today is really positive about the work that both WorkSafe and the Canterbury Rebuild Safety Charter have done. It's really, really positive. I want to kind of take you through some of what those key points of the evaluation are. Some components were really, really successful, others were partially successful, all of which have added to our learning really for how we need to take that forward. And particularly, we need to talk about what's next for our construction program and the inspectorate. So both here in Canterbury and about nationally, how we can take some of the learnings that we've got out of this particular program and apply that nationally. But firstly, I want to thank all of you who have participated in the evaluation as well. So your feedback has been really, really valuable for us. So it's all very well to be part of the membership and to accept the benefits, but you and giving us feedback is that's how we learn, I guess. That's how we understand what's really working for us and what we need to change. And that's for the charter and for the organisation as well. So firstly, a reminder of what we've been up to. And you've just seen through Rob's presentation a list of a number of activities that have been achieved throughout the year and throughout the last 4 years. So this is not exclusive, this list that we have here, but essentially a large part of our working with industry was with the charter. So WorkSafe, work with construction industry groups around the whole country, but here in Christchurch, our main focus, our key area of work was with the charter there. So that was with both funding, with participation in some of the programs of activity, that was with sharing some of the resources that we have here. That was about promoting the charter whenever we went to do an inspection. We've been quite heavily involved with that. At the same time, we employed more inspectors in Canterbury at the start of the program. To help that out, we also actually managed to bring over experienced inspectors from around New Zealand and, of course, from New South Wales as well to kind of aid that or build the capability of our inspectorate team, just to make sure that we had people who knew what they were doing and could regulate in that construction space really confidently. And we had fantastic support from New South Wales for a good 3 years of the program, which has been great. So through WorkSafe events, some of the collateral, the assessment tools for our inspectors, we targeted a whole range of areas, mainly asbestos, working at heights, mobile and fixed plant, excavation and demolition work. So those were the key areas that we worked on there. And we targeted work-related health through the production of guidance material through some of our events that we had. We undertook research and we held campaigns with the occupational health van. I don't know if you remember seeing that van around, that went around a lot of the sites around Christchurch, participating with that. And to address things like fatigue and some of your wellness issues that you may want to, that you need to be concerned about as well in your workplace. And we also worked with our immigration and our labour inspectorate colleagues with a particular focus on those at-risk migrant communities where communication issues are at play, and the culture from where they come from is maybe different to how we do things around here, around in New Zealand. So that was definitely one of the areas of our program where our progress was limited, and we need to take some of the learnings that we got out of that work and use and change, I guess, our focus in that area, make sure it's a bit more targeted to some of our migrant workers out there. So what was successful? So obviously if we'd continued the way that we were working as a regulator before, nothing would have changed. It's that old adage, isn't it, really? If you don't change anything, don't expect anything to change. So we knew we had to do something different. Now, we were following the earthquakes. We knew that the rebuild was kicking off. It was going to be huge, massive for New Zealand. We were predicting about 1 or 2 deaths per year with our current construction rate that needed to happen in this country. So 1 or 2 deaths. So when you think about it, that's 8 people over the last 4 years, roughly up to 8 people who would not have gone home at the end of the day as a result of a workplace accident. It's just huge. So, and it's I guess it's just great pleasure for me to say that in the last 4 years, during the work that when I say we, the collective we have put into the Canterbury rebuild, we've had no deaths on a construction site in Christchurch City, in Selwyn or in Waimakariri districts. That is just a fantastic result. It's absolutely phenomenal when construction deaths are one of our highest deaths or rates of fatality in New Zealand. That's phenomenal. So fantastic result there. Yes, it was successful. You're absolutely right. Thank you. And then since mid-2015, we've seen a steady drop in ACC claims, including claims where workers need to take more than a week off work. So some of those smaller level incidents are also starting to drop. We're seeing changes in our industry. That is kind of signalling some real health and safety culture change. You're becoming more of a high-performing health and safety industry, particularly here in Christchurch, and not necessarily repeated in other parts of the country, I have to say. So when your feedback to us for the evaluation, you said that it was important for you to have inspectors who were knowledgeable about construction, and actually that was central to our inspectors' credibility. So before the program started, there were a lack of resources available to inspect it, and I think the reform that happened after Pike River, for instance, kind of highlighted the fact that the regulator that we were at the time was definitely not a key regulator for government. It wasn't funded well, and the resources weren't available to really take health and safety seriously as a nation for us to do that. So that combined with the need that we would have in Christchurch for more inspectors with credibility has led where we've put our resources and where we've put our effort, I guess, in this particular region. So before the program, there's also a lack of resources available to inspectors. So we would take people who were, had come from the trade, and that's great. But being a regulator is more than being a tradie as well, or a builder. It's more nuanced than that. It is about communication, and it's about holding the line when you need to, and education and engagement. It's about an approach that we would have with people, a professional approach that we would have. So definitely all of those capabilities were sought when we recruited some of our new inspectorate there. But we also, in terms of using the charter, produced some tools, some guidance material, which were all used to be able to train our inspectorate up and build their knowledge of the construction industry and what good looks like, what high standard looks like there. So, however, over the rebuild, inspectors have largely had the necessary tools now then, thanks to the Charter, to allow them to engage and educate and to enforce in their inspection work. So the experienced New South Wales inspectors, they were absolutely key to this. They were tremendous. So they worked with all of our new recruits. So while we were doubling our team across the country, we could rely on them with their knowledge as a regulator and their construction knowledge to help strengthen that Christchurch team, the capability of our Christchurch team. And that included training and mentoring our own resources. So then in a national survey that we've had just recently, we've seen that 70% of businesses and 71% of workers said they were really confident that they were aware of what their responsibilities are. That's huge, like that's massive. That's definitely been reflected in the interviews that we've got here. So I think before the Charter came, people would know that they had some responsibilities, but they didn't know specifically what they were, and they didn't know how to develop the understanding or the tools and things that they needed in that area. So we've seen a huge awareness lift. And it's really clear from our interviews that the Charter was hugely successful in improving relationships and communication between WorkSafe and industry. What it showed was both sides were highlighting how much better their working relationships were now. It's no easy thing to be in partnership with the regulator, and I can imagine it's quite a scary thing to sit around the table and talk about what's going wrong and where are our gaps, and there's always that worry, I guess, that the regulator is going to use that information and write it in their black book and then go and enforce later on. But I think the Charter was extremely successful in that space, working in partnership. It feels like the experience has been somewhat different to that. It feels like it's really easy to work together, and particularly when you both want the same thing. So if we all want everyone to go home safe at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you're a regulator, whether you're a union member, whether you're a worker or employer, you all want the same thing. And I think what that's done for me is highlighted how easy it is to work with industry and the regulator when you both want that same common goal in mind. So the Charter was also a successful mechanism for establishing some health and safety leadership in the industry. All of the Charter leadership roles were held by directors or managers from industry, from government departments and from unions. So having industry members leading the Charter, that encouraged industry to join. So there's no point WorkSafe coming along and saying you have to join. You should join because it's good for you. Actually, who's going to listen to us when you could listen to Graham? Graham, his leadership has been fantastic, and Rob as well, leadership, and everyone that was a part of our Charter team. The leadership has been tremendous. You're a peer, other people look up to you and they listen to you and what you have to say. And now in your role as a patron, you thought you were getting away from us all, but you're not. It's about standing up and saying, this is an industry issue. WorkSafe aren't going to change anything, especially not by themselves. But if you work with us in partnership, we can achieve this. We can achieve that high-performing health and safety culture. So having leaders to stand up, that's enormous. That's people putting the hand up and saying, we've got to do something here as a group. And that's putting competition aside, one of the most remarkable things that we've seen in the Charter as well. So some of our programs are only partially successful, but still we're thinking of this in a positive light, because there's always learnings out of this. So while we've seen a 6-fold increase in signatories since the launch in 2013, there's still further to go. There are people out there who could really benefit from being a Charter member. We do know that most of the larger construction firms have signed up, and they signed up early on. It was an easy sell for them. But the growth area for us has also been in those smaller firms, so the small to medium businesses that are out there. So we still believe there's a large number of those smaller firms in Greater Christchurch that could benefit from members of the Charter as well. So that's definitely going to be a focus to increase our membership in that space. And why? The why really is because of the next point. So while Charter signatories generally understood what made good health and safety practice, there was still confusion on this for the smaller enterprises, the small to medium enterprises, the SME members. They're still confused. That includes the trades and non-signatories as well. So becoming part of the Charter actually improved your understanding of what actually made good health and safety practice, which is why we've really got to focus on getting some more small businesses belonging. So while the survey found that workers were confident that they understood their rights and obligations. The interviews actually found that amongst workers there was no clear understanding of how they might contribute. So they knew their rights and responsibilities, but they didn't know, how do I put that into practice, how do I contribute? So there definitely needs to be kind of more work done on engaging with them, on letting them have a voice, being part of your business, introducing them to helping to design what some of your controls should be out there. Because they want to contribute, they don't know how, and they need you to provide that voice or provide that opportunity for them out there. There was some awareness of work-related health issues, so particularly dust, fatigue, and some of the psychosocial impacts and exposure to asbestos. So there was an increase in awareness in those areas there. But those participants were more likely from the larger businesses. So the larger businesses focused on those on health issues as part of their critical risks, not so much the smaller businesses. Most participants focused on safety issues rather than health. So it's still a key area that we need to build that awareness of across not only this region but across the country. So feedback, however, was really positive on the occupational health van visits. They thought they were really good in the fatigue campaign. So there was a lot of awareness on those two particular initiatives there. So also, commercial construction companies considered that they'd experienced a consistent approach from WorkSafe. That's something that's new for us, actually. We quite often get told we're inconsistent across the country. But consistently within Christchurch, within Christchurch we had a consistent approach, which, as we know, is really useful. It's very, very useful for us. There was, however, a common perception that WorkSafe had focused on commercial construction. So there was a belief out there that we'd focused on commercial construction and not had anything to do with residential construction. But in fact, our data shows that we actually had just as much involvement in that residential space, but the perception was there the perception amongst the commercial members was that we didn't, we hadn't. So it's one of those things, I think, maybe where people feel if we're working with them that they don't understand that we're also working with other parts of the system. So industry is not just commercial, it's horizontal infrastructure. It is, so the eroding and your bridging, it's your residential work that's happening out there. It's not just that commercial space as well. So employees and workers across industry wanted more engagement with WorkSafe. You actually wanted us to come to your sites. Imagine that. It's a bit of a shock for us, really. And they felt that the approach taken by our Australian inspectors and by some of the charter events that were happening out there, that made WorkSafe more accessible. So we weren't scary people to come and talk to. We were there. It reduced some of that trepidation that people might feel in talking to an inspector. We're actually, once again, we're working towards that same goal that you're working towards, that everyone goes home at the end of the night healthy and safe. Some of the industry reported that the tools provided on the site through the charter were pitched correctly. However, others were not using the charter tools. So we know we needed greater engagement about the utilities of those tools, and we knew that would be beneficial. So the charter officer role was initiated, it's been implemented, and it's been really well received by industry. To be honest, Libby, you should stand up and take a bow for the fantastic work that you've done. So it's not enough. It's not enough just to provide these tools. You have to provide someone who can provide the context, who can show them how to use it, who can explain the benefits of it. And we know that once we implemented Libby in that role, suddenly things started to happen. We had some action behind it. We had some people actually listening and utilising the stuff that we'd provided for them. So a huge part of our success, we think. Right, so and I think once again that officer role was seen as less intimidating than having an inspector on site. So it's a lot easier for you to talk. You'll talk to them and you'll get to the real nub of stuff rather than people will talk to you whereas they wouldn't talk to us because they're worried about their jobs and things like that. So your information was really valuable. Totally confidential information that you never shared with us, sorry. But you were able to direct people to the right parts of the site, just saying. So some businesses were also really were implementing good health and safety practice during the rebuild, particularly larger firms and the charter members. However, some of the sub-trades and some of the SMEs, the smaller to medium enterprises, they were less clear on what good practice was and how to implement it as well. And that kind of makes sense because actually it's not your core business. Health and safety on its own is not your core business. It's your core business is the work that you do as a tradie out there. If you're a painter, painting's your core business. But what we're trying to do, I guess, is get you to see that actually health and safety is not an add-on. It's not something extra that you have to do. It's actually part of how you operate your business. And it's good business, makes good business sense to do that. So some workers we have found were practising really good health and safety practice during the rebuild. However, where businesses reported less health and safety practice, workers in those businesses also reported less. So the workers noticed what you were doing. So if you were practising good, say, health and safety practice during the rebuild, and then you weren't after if you were working on another type of project, the workers noticed that. And they could see a difference in the standard. So really important for you to think about that. If you're trying to build a good, consistent health and safety culture, the workers see everything and they know and they pick up on that. They'll pick up on that from you as leaders too. Right. So we also saw that that was particularly the case with some of the sub-trades and the SMEs and the non-charter members. It was hugely. So being part of the charter meant that was less likely to happen because once you've signed up to that pledge, you'd signed up for everything, not just a commercial rebuild project that you're working on. So that's the positive thing really about that. So why was that program successful? So we know we've had some hugely positive results from that. We think this time there were some key reasons why the program was successful. So firstly, the program had agility following that post-disaster context. There was a burning platform, and this was huge, and it was going to be done on a scale that we'd never seen before. But following the earthquake, following the disaster, people had started talking to each other and looking to each other for support and to get through this together. So there was that real, there was a vibe of we're all in this together and we need to work on this together. We think that definitely helped. And we know that there was that huge desire to build a new Christchurch, an exciting, vibrant new Christchurch. Let's do it well and make it good quality. Definitely know that helped. We know that drawing together the different work streams into one program, including collaboration with frontline staff, definitely made a difference. So we're working on Christchurch as a whole with all of the programs of activity rather than separate projects happening out in one area. We know having experienced inspectors who can educate industry on construction health and safety concerns was a huge part of that as well. We know educating industry through the Charter's educational tools was tremendous. All the guidance material, the self-assessment tool, the breakfast and the Charter events that were held, they've been a huge way of bringing people together to talk about health and safety and make it normal. It's just how we do things around here. And enabling senior leaders in the industry to lead the charter in the provision of, so WorkSafe provided the secretariat support and some of the funding, but we left it to the industry to lead. This is your business, this is your Christchurch, this is your rebuild and building project. We left it to you to lead that charter, and we were part of that, we supported it, but we were part of it. We weren't the one leading the way in that space. We know that's huge. And we also know the use of worker representatives, so health and safety reps and worker reps to report on health and safety and act as that link between workers and management. That's a huge part of success as well. Through increasing engagement, the workers holding their managers to account, building that health and safety culture where you're normalising what this is how we operate. And we know things like initiatives like the Pledge, for instance, are hugely hugely influential activities. When you sign that board over there, you're pledging to participate in all of those principles that are there, and not just for the rebuild, because it's not rebuild anymore. This is about going forward. This is all about construction from now on. That says something. That's putting your mark down there and saying, I promise to abide by all of that. And not only that, actually, if you want to simplify it, what that's telling your employees is that you care about them and that actually their safety, their health and safety is more important than anything. I mean, that's what you're telling them when you do that. So it's really important to be able to live up to that as well. So what's next? So obviously things have changed a little bit. Some of the building boom has moved north to that other island up the top there. There is a huge demand for construction at the moment, so we're experiencing a big boom. We know that the new government is committed to building so many houses over the next few years as well, thousands of houses as well. So I think construction is going to be busy for a little while yet, quite a while. And that does mean that we have to think about it still being one of our key focus areas, and particularly for us at WorkSafe, residential construction has got to be a key focus for us in the future. So WorkSafe is going to continue to support that charter through funding, through membership on the board, and through participating in the working groups that are happening there and providing other support as we see needed as well. So we see that charter as a great model for the wider New Zealand. It works really well here. We want to support its ongoing development, so not just this charter, but maybe looking at other charters across the country. So WorkSafe, with funding from ACC, is going to lead a multi-year national construction program, of which Craig is going to be a huge part of that, aren't you, Craig, with your new role? That's going to feature some of the lessons that we learnt from working with the Charter. So the Charter was a new thing for us. That was the first time that we actually did sit down with industry in partnership. We've started to build on that, and we have other groups that we're now looking at. We have FISC, a Forestry Industry Safety Council. We have an ag leaders group that we're looking at. We may be looking at a wider construction safety group as well. So it's definitely been a starting point for us there. We're looking at working closer with industry on our national program, not just the Canterbury area, and that's closer than we've done in the past. So building on what we've done here. So we're definitely looking at our focus in the area and across the trades as well. What we need to do is work to keep those standards high, keep them sustainable, without WorkSafe intervention. So, and just to give you a bit of an idea of some of the frustrations sometimes that we find in that other island, particularly near the top there. Our group of inspectors went into a new subdivision, and worked closely with them for about 3 months, and we got the standards up there. They were really high, they were great. We thought, this is excellent, they've learnt, they know what they're doing now. We moved off to another subdivision. 3 months later, right back to square one. Like, it is so frustrating. So what we actually need is and this will be a key challenge for the new board as well, to keep that momentum going, keep it there. It's easy to kind of reach a target, but then you've got to keep it there, and that's really, really difficult. So anything we can kind of do to help you in that space will be, we'll do it. But we have to kind of look at that across the whole country. So it is about working to keep those standards high. You don't need us to have good health and safety, and in fact, what we'd love that we weren't needed in that space down here. That would be fantastic. We also know that we need to target the cowboys. So we've only got a limited resource, so we want to be able to put that resource where it's needed. And that doesn't mean repeat visits to industries who are doing really well and are doing a good thing and are self-regulating and are managing it. It's actually about targeting those cowboys. So when you get a rebuild, you get all these other people coming out of the woodwork who suddenly are, they really don't know what to do, and they don't care because it's all about money for them. So it is for us to kind of target those people, whether they do care but they don't know what to do, or whether they don't give a toss, really, about health and safety. So that's for us to make sure that we're targeting those people, or we are where we need to be. Before I kind of finish, and you can ask me some questions if we still have time, just have a last comment to make. I just basically want to thank everyone here, and particularly members of the committees that have been working really solidly, really hard behind the scenes here. Just a real big thank you to everyone for their commitment to rebuilding Christchurch safely and Canterbury safely. Thank you for your commitment. It's been fantastic. We've seen fantastic effort and work over the last 4 years, tremendous work, and it's paying off, okay? It's paid off and it's paying off as well. So it's really up to that new charter to carry on that work. You know, it's really worthy, it's important, it makes a difference out there. It's hugely important for us. I can't say how much it's important. Keep your goals and your vision in mind. And as long as you do that and you keep that passion and you keep working towards a high-performing health and safety culture, WorkSafe will continue to support you and all of your activities that you do there. Okay, thank you. So...